So I'm just going to tell you the story about my daughter, who rocks. She is my hero. I cut all my hair off because I was so stressed out after she was arrested that I just had to cut it off because I do this a lot when I'm really stressed. So if I do this a lot, just ignore it. I don't have fleas or anything. I'm just angry. So my daughter was 18. She graduated from high school. She had a dead-end job, and she's like, the military recruiter called our house because they have our home phone number, and said, let me take you out to lunch. And the courtship began. They started telling her all the things that she would get if she came and joined the military. I was raised partially by my grandpa, who was a colonel in the military, and I really had this faith that it would turn her around and she would find some discipline and some good order and make her life go the way she wanted to, motivate her. I said, but hey, you might go to Iraq. And she said, no. She said, they told me that if I sign up for 5 years, I could be an MP, and MPs are never go to Iraq. And I said, oh, wow. But 5 years, that's a long time. She says, yeah, but it's worth it if I don't have to go over there. And I said, well, yeah, I guess so, okay. So I have this little raging stepmom named Kayla, and Kayla was sending her stuff every day, which, this is the stuff I do now in counter-military recruiting. She's sending her every day, this is going to happen, this can happen, this can happen. Suzanne's like, no. And I'm not going to change Suzanne's mind. I never have been and never will. So she left for basic training at 19 and completed her basic training in her AIT, is that what it's called, at Fort Leonard Wood, and they told her that she was going to Iraq. So she got out and she came home for a month, and it was really interesting because this one sergeant kept calling the house and calling her cell phone to check in on her, make sure she was okay, make sure she was safe. Did you get there okay? When are you heading back? I was calling her a couple times a day, and I was like, wow, this guy really cares about my kid. We go up, we say goodbye to her, she goes off, and the minute she sets foot on foreign soil, the sergeant who looked at me in the face and said, don't worry, ma'am, we're going to take good care of your daughter, who was her platoon sergeant, said, why do you keep looking at me, Swift, like you want to fuck me? And she said, I don't know what you're talking about, and went off. The next day, he pulls her into the Humvee as they drive from Kuwait to Iraq. Does that sound familiar? And they got the headphones on in the Humvee, and they're going, and he's talking to her about keeping a secret and engaging in a sexual relationship with this platoon sergeant. She was scared to death because it was just the two of them. And they get to Karbala in Camp Lima. And she goes to her EO, her equal opportunity officer, and says, this is what's going on. This is what this guy is doing to me. The EO basically said, nothing's going to, ignore it. I can't help you, and basically dismissed her. What that does, I've learned a lot in the last 3 years about the military. What that does is it basically gives a green light to anybody that's a sergeant, an NCO, that's a green light that nobody's going to help this private. And she is basically free game. So what I've heard about is that there's, these seasoned NCO sergeants, male sergeants, that make bets about which one of them can make which private their private. And they separate the women. They put them in different rooms so that they have easy access to them. So this is what happened to Suzanne. Her squad leader, she had a couple of squad leaders, but her initial squad leader was a first sergeant, and he started grooming her to be his private deployment girlfriend, I guess is what it's called. And she kept saying, no, I'm not interested. And both of these men, the platoon sergeant and the squad leader, are married. I know their wives. I've always, been a breath away from sending them letters about their husbands. I have pictures of their children too, and it just gets me. So she gets coerced into a sexual relationship that lasts for 3 months with this molester. And what I've learned since then, and he'd do nasty things to her and come to her room in the middle of the night drunk, and then what he would do, and this platoon sergeant would do, is they'd punish her and make her look like a bad soldier. They'd make her do PT until she threw up in the mud and behind the barracks, behind the rooms, whatever their trailers or whatever they are. in the mud, and then, do a PT test with her the next day, and she'd fail, and just write her up for everything he could. Finally, he went on leave. He went on R&R, and he came back, and she said, "It's over. Leave me alone. Don't touch me. Don't come near me." And then the punishment really began. And so from then on, she was subjected to ridicule and harassment. She said, basically, "Mom, everybody here, all the women are either whores or cunts or bitches or lesbians. That's what we are, and they cannot treat us like human beings unless they want to treat us like a man, So I had everything ready in November of '04 to deal with the Congress to try and help her. And she said, "Oh God, no, you can't do that. If you do that, I might die. They might kill me." And I said, "Wait a minute." I said, "Really, I need to do something." She says, "Just, send me some more books, send me some more Rice Krispie treats. That's all I can do right now." So there she is. She starts to get really depressed over there. She doesn't leave her room unless she absolutely has to. They sabotage her, as in, show up at this time or don't show up at that time. And, once she showed up 30 seconds late, and I don't know if you know the story, that the first sergeant made her carry a wall clock with her for indefinite amount of time. And so everywhere she went, she had to carry this wall clock. And then the story that most people don't know is that one night she took that fucking wall clock and she went to his room and knocked at his door and threw it at him and said, "Just take your fucking clock. I'm not doing it anymore." So she gets real depressed, and she comes home finally a year after. And I said, "You ready? Can I do something? Please let me do something." She's like, No, don't do anything. I can't handle it. I just can't handle it. Let me just put my head down. And she went about her job as a military police officer at Fort Lewis. So she's home for about a month. She has a new squad leader, and she goes to him and she says, "Sergeant, where am I supposed to report in the morning?" And there are a bunch of people there, and he said, "In my bed naked." And she just had it. She said, "Forget it." And she went, she broke the chain of command and went and told. They were both interrogated. He was moved to Yakima, someplace in Yakima, and she was treated like a traitor for months. Would call me crying that nobody would talk to her, that she was ostracized, that she, basically, you're a traitor if you tell. You're a traitor. So I said, "Are you ready to deal with this? Please, can we do something now?" And she's like, "No, Mom, please, I just can't handle it." So, because the reason she can't handle it is because she knows she has to go back to Iraq. She has 18 months of stabilization time that she needs to hold tight and be strong. So she comes home about 9 months after she got back, and she said, "Well, they're sending me back early." I said, "Whoa, they can't do that." They can't do that to you. She said, "No, they got in my face. I tried to refuse to sign the waiver releasing my right to 18 months of stabilization time, and they're sending me back 11 months later." And I said, "Oh, hell no. 5 minutes. Are you kidding?" Okay. So anyway, so she was ready to go. We had our hotel arrangements. We were going to come say goodbye to her. I'm looking at her saying, "You don't have to do this." And she's like, "No, I have to do this. I'm not going to, it's my duty." I'm like, "Okay." So 3 days before she is supposed to redeploy, she's got everything in her car. She'd been home, brought all her stuff home, already had sent her stuff over. You send your stuff over ahead of time. And she turned to me, with her keys in her hands. She said, "I can't go back. I just can't do it." I said, "Oh, thank God. Finally I could do something." So she went in to see a psychologist, got diagnosed with PTSD, and got an attorney, and started, went into hiding basically. And then 6 months later, she was arrested in my home and taken to jail. She was arrested by Eugene Police Department. She was taken to jail, where she was orifice checked and strip searched and denied medical care, and she had an abscess tooth. And then they came and got her and took her to Fort Lewis and put her back under the command of that platoon sergeant that was asking her for sex at the beginning. And our attorney said no, and we had to get Patty Murray's office in there to get her moved, and now there's a no contact order. So what I've learned in this time since she was arrested is about command rape. and about military sexual trauma, which are things I had no idea about. Oh, let me backtrack. I forgot to say that right before she was going to be redeployed, something that triggered her is they were on a training mission out in Yakima, and a male sergeant raped a male specialist out in the field at night. And so they all had to do this sexual assault training that you were talking about. And they sat there, and the man that was was raped had to leave crying, and a couple other women had to leave crying because it was triggering all of them and their military sexual trauma experiences. So they all had to go through this training, and Suzanne says, "Holy shit, Mom, let me tell you about what happened." And I was like, "Oh," I said, "How are you doing?" She says, "I'm all right." So she went AWOL. She got arrested. She's at Fort Lewis. They put her back on weed and seed duty, and we have an attorney, and we're trying to get her an honorable discharge for everything that's happened to her. The molester and the sergeant here have left the Army, and one is working for Blackwater, making $15,000 a month. The other one is, I don't know where he is, but the platoon sergeant is still there at Fort Lewis. So that is my daughter's story. She is holding tight. Her depression it goes up and down, her anger about everything. It was interesting when she was a soldier, when she was, before she went AWOL, she just kind of put her head down and didn't pay attention to the news and to politics and to what was going on. And now she's had some time to do that. And I can't tell you how bad she wants to be here today. She wants to be here so bad. And we have lots of talks and lots of discussions about what we're going to do the minute she gets that discharge, and how we're going to just rock this whole place down. I just can't even tell you. So, thanks.